number 4, and whether Team Freedom can complete the comeback. And it's going to be Team Freedom taking us to Sky Temple.
Still comfortable territory there for LFM, just not in the position of the draft they typically are when looking towards the Sky Temple. I think this is fitting that we move to Game 4 here, purely based on the fact that this is the battleground that if you make the right rotation, if you see the right rotation in the same way we saw in the last game, you probably want it. It's not, oh, what about the late game comeback? It very much is dance around the battleground. Do not give your opponent an even footing fight. Based on the performance in Game 1 and 2, I'd say LFM, they're confidently going to be able to make that happen. I think they can snowball this game out of control, but then based on the predictability of the last rotation in the last game, suddenly you go like Team Freedom should have that. So I'm going to hinge a large majority of this game before it even starts on the top night camp rotation and who ends up coming out on top of that. I think that is who's going to win this game.
It will be interesting to see when we get to the bans again, because in the second ban phase by LFM, they banned out Karazim, and Karazim is one of the heroes that we know they love to use with those Iron Fists to get some of that split lane pressure. And had that not been banned out, maybe that is a Karazim instead of an Alex Straza. Hindsight's 20/20, but either way, that is always something in the arsenal of Team Freedom that other teams just don't play as often here in North America. And that does go to that top lane push that you're talking about, because they can make that happen, and it will burn things down quickly.
The importance of that rotation, I think, was highlighted best when Heroes Hearth Esports at the midseason brawl took on the One on Sky Temple in their first series against them, and not showing one of the even best in North America, where most people be like blatantly better than this team out of the Chinese region. And then one night rotation, and we didn't predict it, didn't expect it. Suddenly we're a level down and couldn't catch up the entire game. And it's concerning here. Now, based on, again, that rotation was not fancy. You and I looked at it and was like, gray main compositions. The only way to play it on Infernal Shrines, right? This is not like it was a bit of a Rubik's Cube type conundrum. Simple math.
Speaking of Rubik's Cube,
yeah,
Dave here on the staff.
I know, he's pretty fancy.
I've seen him, there's a video of me solving a Rubik's Cube behind my back. He's a magician though, so I don't know how he did it.
I can solve one in front of my back. How does that make you feel?
Do we have time?
I don't have,
do we have a long enough broadcast?
I got about a minute. I can do it in a minute. Is that?
Okay, you know what? I'm talking to Josh about this. We're going to have broadcast time. I know there's
Okay, wait. Can I practice one day?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you can practice during break whenever you want.
Okay. I just, to do it under a minute, I'll need to practice. I can do it easily in under like 5 innings time. It's
okay,
not hard.
Josh. We need to create a timer strictly for the Rubik's Cube. We'll get back to the draft in a moment, but we're going to put Dread on the spot. He's used to performing on stage for lots of people. I think I actually see Dave out of the corner of my eye. He's probably like, I got a Rubik's Cube.
He does.
But look, let's get back to the draft before we figure out the mind of Dread. Now,
all I learned is I can't admit any of my weird like hobbies that I'm actually secretly good at other than video games, because all they do is get exploited on broadcast.
Yeah, I want to set this up. I need Dread to practice, prepare. We don't have to do it now, but we will set this up. But Yarel Maiev has been picked up. In the minute the camera goes back on you, I'm picking up something for myself.
Nope.
It's going to happen.
Yarel Maiev with the Dahaka offlane pressure. It's going to be interesting based on that top lane rotation and the problem that kind of exists around that night camp, right? Because when you see the Dahaka, normally you think for the aggressive brush talk around the Giants, which is the first rotation until the Knights immediately after. So I already feel like, again, with so much concern that I've had towards that Knight rotation and seeing Dahaka picked up here for LFM, I wonder if they're going to have the awareness of kind of having the proper positioning for him and just making sure they don't waste that brush talk cooldown, knowing the siege is going to be that impactful.
Oh, sorry. Rubik's Cube. So
yeah.
Get to that later. White main ban. We haven't seen White main show up this game.
I'm just so upset.
We haven't seen White main this series, but it is something we know has been played throughout the weekend. Hasn't exactly been the strongest showing just yet, as Diablo is going to be there. With Garrosh picked up on the side of LFM, Team Freedom, we know they've played very well around the Murd, and it's been into their arsenal. I just wonder if they have more strategies involved. This is their battleground choice, more of a macro style play. See if they have something up their sleeves again for this one to just throw off the pacing of LFM.
7 seconds out. What are we going to have? There's the Anu and the Decker Kane. More offensive here for Team Freedom. And definitely like this playstyle here. You and I were talking about in days 1 and 2 here of opening week. Are we going to see the Anu Barak? And I'm glad that we get that, you know, from Team Freedom. I feel like it's apt considering the fact that they are the team that seems to be researching Korea the highest right now. Their drafts are the most closest to the Korean teams. And so I really like this here from Team Freedom.
Mixing this up as much as I can for when it's time. When it's time, I'm going to have this thing all twisted.
I just want you to know, it's a common misconception. Rubik's Cubes actually only pass, I think it's like 12 rotations, can't be more mixed up than they were originally unless you memorize the order. You're really bothering all my OCD when it comes to Rubik's Cubes. Like, everybody's going to realize how weird of a person Dread is now that we brought this onto the stage.
Okay, so compositionally right now, you've got the Garrosh for the toss over. 7-sided strike is great at executing, but you also have the Jaina for that burst damage if you get that isolating kills.
But we saw how impactful that was when Team Freedom picked it on Dragonshire in game number 1, right? That was the first thing we talked about when we saw Karazim picked up. I was like, well, this is without... When you pick Karazim, it's always with a gap-closing, hard crowd control warrior. You're always the follow-up dash on top of it, and then you just throw down the punches, get the trade up into your favor. Garrosh doesn't do that. He's the 7-sided wombo guy. You just wait until Garrosh makes a play and you throw out a 7-sided. You don't get the same value out of the generic kit of Karazim. Karazim's great with 7-sided, but the real part of his kit is his auto attack punching mixed with the value out of his dashes post 13 for mobility and cleanses. And so I just have concerns once again seeing another Garrosh composition with the Karazim. Seems too wombo centric, and even worse than the first time that we got it. We got it with a Medivh before, and we not once saw a Portal play flip isolation 7. Without a Medivh in this one, I feel like it's a little bit more dire.
The more forgiving part of this is the Jaina, because it does give you early game kill potential outside of that. So you get the slow if you can get the lockdown. The problem is we've got a Maiev, has pretty decent escape, I hear. Yrel, super tanky, does have Ardent Defender if you're not taunted and blown up first. And then Anubrak does have, you know, spell armor. He can go into Nerubian armor. We saw the Regen Master, I think, last game. So he does have Nerubian armor, things of that nature to potentially play around. So there are some tools, and of course he does get tossed in, and he has that burrow charge available, can always burrow charge out. And so there are some counters. So if they do get that, it will be potentially limited, as you said.
But there is no major Knight macro advantage with the composition that Freedom's draft. Freedom has a team fight draft, which you can get away on Sky Temple, but I guess a lot of the concerns, especially with the high Dahaka priority, my concerns towards that offlane pressure, I do feel like LFM shouldn't fall behind on that sense. If they do, it's purely on that skirmishing, but I do think Freedom has the draft to really bring, I mean, that team fight like no other there. Resets on resets for Yoda.
We'll see if Team Freedom...
Oh, wait, not Yoda on the Li Ming, actually, sadly.
Ooh.
Gonna have a Lutano there.
Yeah, with the Maiev in there, obviously, it looks like they've narrowed in their flex player, because I think when Maiev first came out, it was Lutano on that, and they were trying to figure out the flexibility, but, you know, they've narrowed their roles slightly, and I think that's obviously been a huge help for them, as a lot of teams have gone through those transitions for the unique heroes like the Maevs that come into play.
One thing I want to point out, I said this last time we saw it, but notice how Swabs decided to brush talk to the left shove versus the right shove. If you're ever a Dahaka and you are going to make that aggressive rotation, make the aggressive one. Ladies and gentlemen, because if you go to the left one, like, you pretty much just burn a brush talk and you're at the same position that everybody who mounted it. You're trying to abuse your global. Abuse the global by getting in the shrub that, you know, is a little bit different than the standard mount. It's a small thing, but I love them. I love the small things of Heroes of the Storm.
After that last game, Team Freedom, they presented LFM with a Rubik's Cube that they turned more than 12 times, and LFM was unable to answer. See, with this composition, definitely strong objectively. There's some of the mobility. Yoda's like, look, if you're going to flip me, by the time I land, I want to make sure that I can E out of there. There's a disrupt on the rotation already by Zugrug. It's one of the things that obviously a lot of tanks can do. As long as you have the mobility to get away, you just slow those rotations, get the pacing more in your favor, and control the early game rotations.
Yeah, he's really effective with that, especially if it's not the overall meta and not the must-have go-to, but if you do move into the beta barbs at 4 with the slow that's added on top of it with that slow burn, it gets the dismount for long periods of time, and it's really annoying to be able to try and make those rotations happen. Giant's going to be picked up, and Jayhow, we're about to endure that night rotation we were talking about before. It looks like it's going to be started faster by LFM with the 3-man defense here for Freedom. So suddenly, LFM, if they end up picking this up, they're going to have the brush talk opportunity, but they're going to lose a lot when it comes to the siege down below. Garrosh is answering, but this is going to be not enough defense. I can't help but feel like Figgy should have been the one with that response, and then maybe Garrosh make the transition up. So I feel like LFM, they need to prove, why is this night camp going to be worth the rotation, and let's see what they can make happen with it.
Yeah, the race potential of a Yrel and a Maiev is going to be interesting to see how quickly they can get their knights out, because if we don't see a rotation up, the wave clear for a night camp, when you look at Li Ming, doesn't have great value. Obviously, we've seen an uptick on damage when Yoda does throw his E out there, but this is Siege City right now for LFM.
Yeah, and originally I was concerned with the clear capabilities of LFM on bottom, but Freedom let them in a 3 versus 2 walk up and drag and flip the Giants with almost no threat whatsoever. Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. You just zone off of that, but they didn't. So They have an effective clear and a rotation up top. Freedom, or excuse me, LFM, not too much to be concerned about here, but I do appreciate this rotation for Freedom with the pressure throughout the mid lane as well. It's going to be better prepping the first 2 Shrine phase, whereas top lane only enables the first Shrine phase.
Well, here's the thing. It wasn't until Endemic, I think, week number 2, it was very early on, we saw an approach on Sky Temple that was uniquely different. Again, the reason why you push that top lane is to just make sure if you get the wall down, you have the potential to take a fort. And getting a fort right now with the XP changes is far more significant. Endemic was like, what if we just ignored the top? And Fury, he's trying to ignore the graveyard right now as he's going to be rooted. Zugrug comes in the follow-up. That is a major pickup here for Team Freedom. But Endemic did this thing where they just pushed down mid, and then the middle temple got mid fort.
Yeah.
So they still came out ahead in that situation. But now with Garrosh being down, they have potential to take advantage of both temples.
It used to be with the turret advantage, you know, you could make the argument that top would be a little bit better than mid just purely based on the shots towards the turrets. But now with that adjustment, yeah, it makes no sense to put a higher priority on one versus the other. A lot of shots have been picked up here for LFM. Droplets maybe out too far. Burns a penetrating round long with the hammer, eats a full arcane orb. Blizzard thrown down to kind of stop the advance of Team Freedom. But LFM, even though they lost the member in these kills, I can't help but feel like they're walking away from the first Shrine phase feeling like they ended up winning it, not only because the experience sitting dead even, structures are sitting at dead even, but it's, again, based on the fact that they lost that member. Dahaka got free soak on bottom, and nobody contested the solo Karazim on top Shrine from beginning to end.
Yeah, they wanted to. They went up there, were unable to do just that, and I think that was the difference, is that we saw LFM go up there, but then the contention over that middle Shrine.
There's normally that nets a lot more whenever they get the Garrosh pick. You know, I can't help but feel like that's a little bit more Freedom not being proactive enough once they get the upper hand.
Move forward here as the turn towards that. LFM is getting a camp while Team Freedom constantly is moving in and just getting more and more damage to structures. We'll see how that shapes up in a moment as Yoda.
There's the
He's
vault.
got company.
He's got an E over the wall. No, not over the wall. Goes the opposite direction. Finds Fury with a tether. Dark Chimera throwing a couple punches there onto Zugrug. Nice slow out from Figgy, but the armor. Look at this 5-man collapse, actually. Nazma's now looking to join the fight. Swab's trying to find a drag, but he's going to get knocked back. 2-man knockout with that Yoda charge. And Yoda goes in with that fan, and Knives ends up getting the kill here. They're not done, though. Trying to find more onto Swabs.
Wow, because they burned that Brush Stalker there as well. So they were committed to taking that fight, was LFM. They didn't get it, so they miss out on the potential experience boost they could have got in the top lane. Don't get the kill, instead giving up that kill. So that is an advantage that was just picked up there by Team Freedom, and it started with the pressure they put on that bot lane. We see the results of that. That entire bot lane, that gate is down, and that's why we saw LFM come over and sniff out the siege and see if they could get an advantage. So the counter was there, but Team Freedom able to counter the counter.
And that puts a big enough experience advantage into their favor while rounding the second Shrine phase that this is going to be pretty reliable for Team Freedom to pick up a majority of those shots. They've already prepped the bottom lane to be pretty high impact, so they will hit the 10 spike and even the fort spike a lot faster there than LFM. LFM, I want to say they're outside of the window of Sky Temple that you're looking for to be able to recover, especially because they have a global, but surely this is getting closer as the game moves on here after those last couple of kills.
1 half pixel over to step in that bush. Maybe they could have turned something on that, especially with the Anubrak, but getting the push down here in the bottom going to be far more significant. This temple will help take down this fort, and it will be the brush stock opportunity again on when they choose, because LFM is very close to that level 10, and we'll pick that up off of this minion wave as well as the one on the top. So when the brush stock comes in, will Team Freedom, they fight, and they're looking for a fight because they already got the cocoon out.
Yeah, but he has
Karazim.
7-sided out of this if you would like to use it defensively to keep himself alive. Dark Chimera got to get the 2-man knockback. Bringer of Frost goes down to isolation as well onto the front line, and New Barak's going to be the first to drop. Oh my, stay a while and listen, hitting 4. No damage to be able to break that, but no resets available there for Lutano. LFM win the skirmish.
I really like that we saw there. Obviously, the Ring of Frost was major there to help get the takedown onto Anubrak, but it was the Dahaka play. Swab saw that Karazim was stuck right around that. He came in and he ate one of those wardens that get that pull in. He's making sure that he takes away some of those options. He knew he was at no risk of dying, so he intentionally walked into it, gave his team that advantage around that warden's cage. ended up taking the rest of the temple shots.
That's also one of the trade-offs that you have to consider when facing against Karzim. Only support in the game still with the self-cleanse other than Brightwing with Ice Block. He has a actual defensive capability, and worst of all, it's one of his best offensive behind it. And what it does provide for him is pretty much a free situation to enable a pre-Q for his Qs, right? So you just shift QQ, and you can get immediate double dashes outside of it while your 7-side is going off. So what I'm trying to highlight is he's one of the worst to be able to cocoon try and all in. If you do not get the kill in the downtime, the odds of the Karzim rebuttaling and getting a proper response is a lot better than your traditional support. If that's a Malfurion, for instance, though, you pretty much just win the team fight.
Rip Mal Ice Block.
Rip every Ice Block, for that matter. Just, I have so many support things I could say rip to that I feel sad are gone. Self-Ancestral Rhaegar, that's number 1. Please, please.
Alex Strasza, she says, check me out. But for Team Freedom, they had that control, forfeited some of that over that last team fight, but structurally still ahead. We've seen the focus on just rotating around, getting some damage in, rotating around, get some more damage in. There's going to be a follow-up to some CC, but no kill potential there. Maiev still in the bottom, dealing with that siege camp. Level 13 right around the corner here for Team Freedom.
Zone in control for a moment. Freedom not going to be fully anchored out of that rotation. Dark Chimera hasn't displayed himself on top yet, but surely Freedom could assume that LFM is looking to posture on that side lane. 25 seconds from these two temples. Structure advantage still in favor of Team Freedom, so the responsibility is on LFM, but they do have the global advantage. This is really, I feel like, the breaking point. If Freedom is able to keep ahead in the same manner that they have been over this game, structurally, they'll be so far ahead that LFM cannot get the turnaround back in this game, even though experience has been okay. So a lot hinges on it here, and with LFM winning the last fight, they might have the tools here. I think a lot of it's going to go down as well to Dark Chimera on the 7-sided strike. How much value he gets, or at least resources, can he bait from Freedom?
Well, Haka just showed bottom, which means that he either has to brush stock now and forfeit those siege giant camps and look for a fight, or that's going to concede control over to Team Freedom, at least momentarily. So we'll see if Tahaka does enter this fight, as you can see on the minimap moving down towards that temple.
Yeah, keep in mind too that the eye is actually controlled by LFM, so brush talk opportunities from above are a lot higher probability and success rate, and Yoda doesn't have the opportunity to backdoor kind of E over the wall. I would really like to see somebody on Freedom get that. Hold on, flip taunt over, 7-sided strike gonna go down along with the blizzard. A lot of damage is gonna be there, but so much rain there by Yoda on that Maiev, hitting 3-man fan of knives, throws out another one. Swabs is going to be the last man standing here over this middle skirmish.
Oh, wait a minute. Droplet says, hold on, I'm hiding. And I wish I was still there, because that's going to be a 5-man team wipe in favor of Team Freedom. And they exploded there. Now, Dreadnought, you and I were on the plane flying over to Korea. We saw it. We were looking at it in some of the VODs. We saw it firsthand. The Anub'arak. One of the reasons the Anub'arak, as we take another look at this, that jump in there by Nasmus, because Zugrug was about to get popped. All right? He was about to get popped. There's no doubt about it. But Zugrug with that, or excuse me, Nasmus with that level 4 and 7 had just used it, procced his level 7 to get onto Anub'arak. Had another cooldown on that and was able to get in and get that armor just in time for Anub'arak. It's a Korean pairing that we've seen. We've said Team Freedom has been studying that. The Yrel Anub'arak. When Anub'arak goes in, he's susceptible to getting blown up. Once he's in, he's all in. But they've supplemented that in Korea. They found that magic to get it around with the Yrel to say, hey, look, if you're in, I'm in with you. Here's 35 armor. Let's go.
I view it as very much like old Tyrael. Tyrael is only selected if you have a dive buddy with you. And right now, Yrel is the great dive buddy to be able to synergize along with the Anub'arak here. And it is cool to be able to see that come to life here for Freedom and get them such a big success here. Nasmus goes out, pokes and prods on to Figgy. Taunt going to be used. Indomitable dropped along with a 7-sided. Ring of Frost thrown down, and 2 members of LFM already dead. With those kills here, Freedom going to waste no more time. Make their way onto the core.
Dude, Lutano just popped off there because I'm like, all right, we've got the kills. Nope, Lutano says, I'm going to burst you instead. Now the shields have fallen. Team Freedom looking to even this series up 2-2 as the shields fallen 80% and going down. It doesn't look like they're going to throw this time as 60%, see if they can get another kill. That's going to be a third, and it's going to be sending us to a game number 5.
Games 1 and 2, it felt like Team Freedom was outclassed almost by LFM, but somehow they show here in this, and your Rubik's Cube here, the strength that they have gained as a roster. You know, I feel like through their time in the North American HGC that they are never really out of the series here. We often criticize, as we talked about a little bit before, of them failing to be proactive within their play, but that is very much not the case here as the series kind of progresses.
It really seemed like LFM in their first few games, they were just making Team Freedom chase them around. Wherever they went, they were on a rope. They were at the other end of it. LFM would say, we're going here, we're going to force the response. The last 2 games, though, Team Freedom, between Infernal Shrines and now Sky Temple, yes, there was a thought process between that top night camp, and it seemed like that was the advantage, but then we saw the rotation mid for Team Freedom. Ended up trading forts in the long run, got the kill on a garage, but it seemed like they had a strategy. It's like, we're going to avoid a lot of this. We're going to avoid a lot of this early team fighting, the skirmishing, and it just really seemed like they are in control of their own destiny at this point instead of playing somebody else's game right now.
Yeah, it's really cool to be able to see them be able to recover on the fly within a series in these type of situations to make that happen. That's the first game I feel like that, even though it is their second win, that I looked at and it was like, you guys won this game like flat out. Because even when we looked at Shrines, I can't help but feel like with the core, struggling on that type of situation, if LFM is a bit more, kind of experienced of a squad, I'm not sure they walk away with a W in that one. But it's nice to see cool, calm, and collected on a map like Sky Temple for them, one that originally they were very much known for their dominance.
Well, we're going to go to a commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to see if Team Freedom can complete the reverse sweep. We're also going to see if Dreadnought can complete that while we're on break. We'll be right back.